Hi everybody, welcome back. In this next video, we're going to talk about some of the elements of design, specifically line and shape. So let's start out with a line. What exactly is a line? It's a one-dimensional element. It's got length, but no width, breadth, thickness, right? A line does not actually exist in the physical world. What we perceive as a line, or what we use or regard as a line, can be either a thin solid, like a strand of wire, or it can be a crease in two surfaces, or some sort of discontinuity in the color or in the tone, such as an example is where an object meets a shadow. So none of these are the geometric line, but our vision, our human vision, perceives all of these examples as lines. So it should be fairly obvious that lines are essential to represent our perceptions in a drawing. And so a line is a one-dimensional trace on a two-dimensional surface to describe the three-dimensional form of an object. Okay. What we're trying to do is recreate the sense of that form's existence in space and to delineate, there's the word line right in the middle of there, delineate edges and contours. So then what is a contour? Contour is going to circumscribe or go around the outside of an object. It's going to define the outer boundary between the figure and the background. A contour will limit and define the edges of things and describe its shapes. So here's a couple of examples on your screen of contour drawings. Okay, but I don't want to give you the wrong impression that we're just talking about the silhouette of an object. This contour idea is not just the outline, but it actually is a way of using lines to describe the three-dimensional nature of your specific form. So here's an example on the screen. Let's take a look. It says, some contours travel inward at folds or breaks in a plane. And that's this one. See how this one comes in? This line right here. Kind of. All right. Others are formed by overlapping or projecting parts. And so let's go down here. Right here. And so there's more to that chair arm behind. So there's some overlapping parts. And finally it says, still other contours describe the shapes of spaces and shadows within the form. And that's going to be in here. We've got pieces that are inside in the center of our object and are throwing shadow on the other items. So let's move on and talk about shape. A shape is a characteristic outline of a figure or form. It's a two-dimensional area. So we're talking about one-dimensional line, now we're talking about two-dimensional shape. It's enclosed by boundaries and cut off from other larger fields. Shape is how we organize and identify what we see. So here we have a couple of examples of shapes. This letter H here is a shape. Any line that defines a shape, and for example, one of these lines, is going to carve out both that shape and the space on the other side. All right, so lines have two sides to them. It might belong to that shape, but it's also going to carve out space on the other side. And that leads us right into our discussion of figure ground. So as humans, we see parts of our visual field, everything around us, as solid objects standing out against a background. For example, you're looking right now at the object of me, of a person, against my curtain background. All right. This is a way that we impose order on our visual worlds. Okay. If we didn't understand our world with the figure ground idea, kind of everything would be a fog. Nothing would be more important than anything else. There's a lot of different ways to, in drawing, to pull things to the front and make them into a figure. And here's one example. So we have a contour drawing right here. It's got a simple border and then a much more complex line in the middle. It's very easy to see for us as humans, as observers looking at this picture, that there is a figure at the bottom of the drawing here, and contrasting to the ground or the background of that piece. And interestingly enough, we interpret this contour line, this element of line, to belong to the figure and not to the ground. The last thing that I want to talk about in this video here is the concept of positive and negative shapes. So we're conditioned in our daily life to see the shapes of individual items rather than the shapes or spaces in between them. Positive and negative shapes are ones that share the same boundaries, and they combine to form a whole scene. So any drawing that you do is going to consist of positive and negative shapes, and they fit together like a puzzle. Let's talk about some of the differences here. Let's compare and contrast. A positive shape you can see clearly against a background, whereas a negative shape usually is kind of a shapeless background. The positive shape will tend to advance in your field of view, and a negative shape might recede. The positive shape will be complete. It will be substantial, and it will define a specific shape. The negative shape tends to be incomplete and might feel amorphous. Right? So any drawing that you do, I'm just going to reiterate here, is going to have both positive and negative shapes. All right, everybody, in this video we covered some of the elements of design. We're going to move on in the next video to some specific techniques of how to draw these elements.